Donnie B, GotDaBeats.
Woo, what's good? What's good? We had a long day today. But anyway, this is Donnie B Got the Beats. You're on the beat. And I'd like to introduce you to my next guest. This next guest is very near and dear to my heart, man. This is like I don't have a lot of brothers. I got one brother, and that's my little brother, and I love my little brother more than anything else. But if I had to quantify other brothers, it would be my LD brothers from the University of Hampton, or as they say, HIU, or Hampton Institute University. Low down. I don't even know how to lean with it, but this is my guy. This is my brother. This is my brother from another mother. Anthony Amey, Sportscaster HBCU Alum. Anthony Amey, how you doing, brother?
Good to see you, man. It's funny because just at the sight of you, I can't help but smile and laugh. So I remember, when you first got to Hampton U, and I put the visual from that time to the visual of you now. You're all grown up. Your father, you're a very responsible member of society. So we did our job, I guess, at Hampton, as well as the place where we met in the marching force band at Hampton. So very proud of you, man. I'm doing well. As you know, as we're fighting this virus and this pandemic, if everybody's healthy, and include myself, everything else is a bonus. So everything's good. No complaints.
Indeed. And to answer the question, yes, you guys did your job, man. Everything that I am is built off of everything that I'm not, as well as everything that I've been trained to be. You are one of the most influential people that I have ever come across. And not Mr. Sexually with Sir, you being one of them, the other one being Skillet. I show nothing but love and respect to you guys. You don't even understand how much you influence me. So just to have you back here, like you said, being a father, having to go through that after, watching you go through it, and hearing what you have to say, it means a lot to me.
No, look, you guys, trust me, as much of an impact as we may have had on you, you all had just as heavy an impact on us. We wouldn't have been able to lead in whatever way we managed to do so. We would not have been able to lead without people who were willing to follow and listen. And the best way to ensure that you are leading in the right way is to have people who are willing to follow in their right mind. And I say I quantify it that way because you have a whole lot in society right now. People just following folks. I won't name any names, but people following folks, and they seem like they've lost their mind. So, but no, in all seriousness, you guys, we saw it early. Just how much potential all of you had, and we're just glad that you grew into the people that you become. So that I say somewhat in jest, that we did our jobs, but you all obviously did the hard work, and we just kind of sort of nudged you in the right direction. But you all did all the work, obviously, in terms of learning which direction you were going, and once you did, you took off running. And so, like I said, very proud of you, man, and that that bond that we all have is forever. So, you know, when you asked me to do this, I was thinking, of course. I'm like, why is he even asking? Like, when to be and when to be there, of course. So, but yeah, no, I'm proud of you guys. I'm gonna let your audience know something too. When you were talking, and you go, yeah, man, it's me and one of our other brothers, Devin. You remember Devin? Like, what the hell is wrong with this boy? Well, you been drinking? Of course, I remember y'all, man. I ain't gonna forget my brothers or our sister, Amelia. So that was a good show. But y'all are everything to me, and it's good to see you. Good to be back with you.
Likewise, brother. Likewise, brother. And it's just so many times, man. So many. We probably ain't going to be able to quantify all of the good feelings of this one episode, but nonetheless, glad to have you on the show, man. Really. As far as Anthony Amey, a lot of people don't know. You spent a lot of time, with ESPN, various radio. I mean, not radio. Sorry, news stations across the country. You have put in your time, brother. You have been somebody that people have watched and be like, "Oh, he's doing it." What, like, how? Speak about that. Who is Anthony? Like, how did you get to that level, get to that point? Because it was like one moment you was at Hampton with us, next moment you was gone, and then we looked up and he was on TV. It was like, "Holy shit!" Like, there's that.
Yeah.
You know, and it was always like, "Wow, he's doing exactly what we want to do." So, how do you get to that point? Who is Anthony? Anthony.
It was always part of the plan. I think far too often, certainly, when we were in school, definitely now, with youngsters nowadays, I think people have a difficult time discovering, pinpointing what exactly it is they want to do at an early point in their lives. That's not a crime. I mean, there's nothing wrong with not being sure until you're sure. But for some people, you're able to pinpoint exactly what you want to do at an early juncture. And for me, that was certainly the case in terms of broadcasting. I just always knew I wanted to do it. My focus has always been sports, primarily sports, I should say, and that was just always something. And we'll get into more of it a little bit later, but I'll be honest. I mean, where we're from, the Washington football team, I almost call them their old nickname, but the Washington football team is first, second when it comes to priority. It's kind of a shared love of everybody in the area. Not, I should say everybody, but most people in the area grew up on that team.
Yeah.
And we just happened to grow up at a point where that team experienced its most success when we were in our formative years as teenagers. So as kids growing into teenagers. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I actually told a friend of mine, if that team back then was as unsuccessful as it's been over the last 2 decades, I don't know if I would have gone into the field that I went into. So it's one example of how everything happens for a reason. But I knew forever ago that I wanted to do this. When we were at Hampton University together, my first 3 years were spent, sort of on that path. But I was also in the band, and as you know, the band took up a lot of time. It's very time consuming.
Very.
And something that required a certain amount of dedication. And if you felt like you were not able to put in the required amount of time and dedication, then in my mind, you were taken away from the cause. So for me, that last year, I knew I had to sort of morph into focusing more on what I want to do in the future. And that's when I started to shift more into media because I knew that was the path I wanted to take. So I've just been fortunate to be able to, I've been in it really since I left Hampton. Over 2 decades now in the game. It's a ruthless, ruthless subjective business. So it's, I often would tell coaches that I cover, it is a lot like coaching. So for those of your viewers and listeners that are taking this in, if you ever pay attention to the resumes of different coaches, most of them started off at small college somewhere. And this is no matter the sport, virtually every sport. Coaches start at small colleges, often paid very little, and you just kind of work your way up that ladder. Well, in this business is very much the same. At least it used to be. It's a little bit different now, but I knew, again, going in, this is the path I have to take. I was fortunate enough to get an internship at a very young age, and I actually started an internship the summer before my senior year of high school. It was part of a program. I won't get into it, it's a long story, but and through that internship, I was able to see people that ascended to greater heights. One of them being Gus Johnson, the famous broadcaster of Fox Sports, who continues to do well, and he's the #1 college football announcer. And he was working at the station where I interned in Washington. And I was able to see him and learn from him and understand, okay, this is the path you have to take to get where you want to go. And so I went into it with my eyes wide open, understood that I was going to have to start small, start low, and work my way up. And sometimes it goes quickly. For me, it went very quickly. Wound up at ESPN about 5 years after graduation, 5.5 years after graduation. So it blew my mind when one time I got in touch with you guys and you're like, hey man, we saw you on TV in the calf. I'm like, what? So, I mean, even today that blows my mind, but it can happen that fast. It really can. But it's about how well prepared you are for it. And if you're ready to run with your moment when it comes. So it's been an interesting journey though.
Well, it's definitely one, like you said, it was real well tracked. I mean, you being the polarizing figure that you are, we were at the University of Hampton, and I say it that way for out of a way to differentiate it between Howard University, and I say that lovingly, I do, but being at Hampton and seeing somebody that looks like us up on that screen, it meant a lot. And even more so than we even knew at that time, because I mean, over the years, I've grown to be very enamored with people that I knew that went on to reach certain levels of distinction. And to see you, like you said, we in the cast, and we just like, hey, whoa, that's Ant. Like, hold up, like like. You think people move on and graduate, it's just like, oh, okay, but at the moment when you least expect it, then you see a person to pop back up, and it's just like, wow, like I gotta take my glasses off, like wow, it meant a lot, and it was more from the bricks that you laid while you were with us than the bricks that you laid once you were away from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So again, kudos to you. Kudos to the path that you chose, and kudos to the work that you put in. It means and meant a lot. Definitely.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Like you said, it really it means a lot to know that, as you said, it's the work that you set as your foundation. That's something that you build on. It's who you are. Like, in other words, whatever path you choose, as you're navigating that path, you're still true to who you are. So, if, quite frankly, I mean, if you're somebody that's undisciplined and wandering aimlessly, then it's going to be difficult to find your way and navigate that path. Because, look, frankly, I mean, we all go through stuff. We all have things we have to endure. but you have to stay true to who you are to get where you want to go, frankly. I mean, there are certain instances where you luck into whatever. That happens too to all of us, but you have to stay true to who you are, remain disciplined in what you're about. And if you do it, it makes getting to that place where you're trying to go, it makes it a little bit easier. So now, look, I mean, there are some instances too where, like I said, the road is going to be bumpy for everybody. That's just life. And there are hurdles there that trip all of us up, but it still comes back to who you are. And so where we were, where we learned together, the things we learned, those things help. Those things are helpful to understand and remember when you get to those bumpy parts of the road, to always be able to look back on those experiences and those people, such as yourself, to help sort of get your mind right. If you're ever kilter or if you ever kind of wander a little bit off that straight and narrow. So, but yeah, I mean, I of course there are things that we all wish we could have done differently, but overall, I mean, I love everything about the journey that I've been on. Hopefully, it's still plenty more journey and path, there to navigate. So that's the hope right now, and hopefully we're all far from done as far as what we're looking to accomplish.
Right. Words to live by, definitely. Let's get into this. The fact that we share our home base. I think that was the one of the biggest things that was a realization to me. I never really spoken it, but I had a hard time adjusting to Hampton life because it was totally different than what I was used to. You guys literally broke the mold with me in order for me to get to see that life itself is bigger than just these little streets and blocks that I was used to. But you specifically, like I said, I always have love for Skillet and I always have love for you. I resonated with you differently because you literally walked the life that I want. You're from where I was from. The expectation, you had a different level of expectation for me, being that we're from the same place, than anybody else that I'd ever met from where I was from. With that said, DMV life. DMV meaning DC, Maryland, Virginia. That corridor, that small little MEAC corridor, Mid-East Atlantic corridor. DMV life for you, what was that like for you, for those that don't know you?
It was the best. I was back home last week, which was the first week in December, to visit my father. Father's still hanging in there, still living in DC. He's 86 years old, doing well. He really was the foundation for me. I mean, it was discipline, first, second, and third with him, and that was my foundation. As far as the city itself, it was my first time back in the city in over a year. So I don't get a chance to get back up there that often because I've always been so far away. Like pretty much, all the jobs I've had, I've been, sort of far away from home. Right. So I don't get back there too often, but just being back there, man, the atmosphere, the pace, the weather, everything just felt right. I mean, it's another one of those things where if I could go back and change anything, I again, of course, there are always certain things that you wish you could do differently, not knowing now. Again, the old saying, if we knew now, if we knew then what we know now, things would be so much different. Mm-hmm. But overall, I wouldn't want to change anything. I'll put it that way, because that place, it establishes a certain toughness in you. The way that we came up, the school systems, there's an awareness that you have to have or you will be thrown to the wolves. At least that's how it was. And it's funny. I was talking to a coworker of mine. We were in the hallway at my job, and it was just two of us in the hallway. And she's from New York, and she's ahead of me. Her back's turned, and I come behind her, and I'm actually walking kind of quietly, but she heard my footsteps, and she immediately. And I was like, well, that's that city life. Like that area, it creates an understanding that you have to be aware of what's going on around you. But it's not just about people in close proximity. It's about awareness of all kinds. And so it's not to be dismissive of any place else or anybody that's from any place else, because there are other places that are similar. But DC is just a special place that, and notice too, DC and DMV, different from Washington, which is where all the lawmakers and President of the United States resides and Congress and all. It's different. Washington is Washington, but the government, DC and DMV, totally different.
Right.
But it establishes a certain heart, a certain hard exterior that you just can't put a price tag on. Or quite frankly, I mean, I'm serving as a perfect example right now. You can't even really sufficiently describe it in so many words. But it's a special place. It's different, certainly, from what it used to be. Gentrification, unfortunately, has turned it into something different.
Okay.
So I was listening to a podcast recently, a sports podcast, and the guy is talking about it's a guy who grew up in Bethesda or Montgomery County, which is certainly not the same as other parts of DMV. And he's talking about athletes and how certain athletes should want to come to DC, to DC sports teams to play, because, quote, well, DC, Washington is now a really wonderful place to raise a family. Now it's so much better than what it was. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this motherfucker, like, are you kidding me? So that in itself, and he didn't realize that what he was saying was insulting to people like you and I, because home for me and the way we grew up, I wouldn't want it any other way. I thought it was incredible the way we grew up, how we grew up. Were there issues? Of course, but you also learned how to deal with them. It was part of it. It was part of growing up. For people who grew up in Bethesda, Montgomery County, and didn't have to have their heads on the swivel and be as aware, then maybe it wasn't great for them. But it was incredibly insulting for me to hear that, because it's always been a great place. But gentrification has changed it tremendously. Even with that said, when you're from the DMV, when you're from DC, you carry that with you everywhere. So even though you're 3,000 miles away from home, you're always going to be DMV. Wherever I am on the globe, throughout the country, I'm always going to have it with me. I crank go-go in the car today, on the way to work sometimes at any point in time. When I went home, made sure I got something with some mambo sauce on it. Hit up Ben's Chili Bowl.
Yeah,
so there's some things about it that will always stay with you. The Washington football team, I have NFL Sunday ticket. Even though it costs an arm and a leg, I get it every year just so I can watch my team. As bad as they've been over the last couple of decades, they finally turned it around. Finally, I hope. But they've been terrible the last couple of decades. But I still get it every year because it's ingrained in you. That region, that city, it's ingrained in you. And there's nothing that can take the DMV out of you. And for those of us who are from there, we would never want any part of the DMV taken out of us. It's who we are. It's what made us. Always will be.
You said it way better than I could have said it. And it's funny because I'm only going on 6 years in Los Angeles.
Wow.
But even though in some ways I feel I'm an Angelino, I'm gonna always be a DMV. I'm gonna always be a DC head. It is what it is. Like I can never bring myself to fully acclimate to what it is to be an Angelino because it's different. And I get the most shit for being true to the DMV lifestyle, no matter where I am in the world. Because, like you said, I felt that, and I actually alluded to that in in social media posts and so forth and so on. Is like DC prepared me for Hollywood.
Yeah.
I don't think New York would have been able to prepare me for Hollywood. I don't think. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I love Hampton, but Hampton didn't prepare me for Hollywood. But DC prepared me for Hollywood. We was already red carpet years ago. You know, have an understanding of what it's like, how to treat celebrities and so forth and so on, how to navigate, have the swag, have the attitude, let the work speak for itself type of deal, like all of that, and all of the above. And like you said, with regard to the football team, lovingly, I still call them the Redskins. I don't know, and I don't mean that in a negative way. That's my Redskins, bro. Like it's just like the Wizards is cool, but it's always the Bullets. I don't care what you say. It is always the Bullets. And we ain't been right since we've been the Bullets. I mean, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But, like you said, there is a love of culture that is associated with the come with DMV. I think we're way prepared for a lot of different things because it's so much exposure from the north, from the south. We even get exposure from the west. Literally everybody from everywhere descends upon our capital and has taken root in the capital. And we just learned to adapt. And I think that's a beautiful thing with the DMV. So I definitely thank you for your commentary on the DMV life. And I totally understand where you come from, and it made me feel good because I was like, Jesus, finally, it's not just me. Let's move on to this stuff. Sportscasting business be like. For those who's never, because most of the time when you think of entertainment business, you don't think of certain things like radio host or correspondent or certain things. But it takes a certain type of person to be that. But yet we see that type of person every day when we wake up and go to bed. What is the sportscasting business like for you? Like, what is it like to be in the sportscasting business? And I know you alluded to it earlier, but could you expand upon that?
It is. It's completely different from when I left Hampton to get into it initially. And the reason it's different is because of the evolution of technology, frankly. What I mean by that is right now we're all in a position where because of these phones, you can get information that sportscasters had before anybody else. Now everybody can get that information. The same way you can pull up the forecast for today on your phone like that. You can pull up highlights, scores of your favorite teams. You can follow their social media accounts. You can know stuff before I know stuff.
Fantasy football
Has changed it. Social media, like I said, has definitely changed it. Athletes, coaches, technically they don't need the media anymore to disperse their messages. They can get their own messages out by their own accounts. The teams don't have to know anything about it. These guys now are, they're their own empires, and they get to run their own empires with their own messages if they wish. So the key right now in sportscasting is, for me personally, to find a way to get a message that's known out to people with a spin on it that they might not know. And so I'll give you an example. One of my favorite, so at my current job, I currently work at the Black News Channel, BNC, which is a national network that just launched this past February. And right now we're in 42 million homes. That should be over 50 million by the time we get to February 2021. One of my favorite interviews that I've done to this point was, since I've been here, was Dawn Staley. So Dawn Staley is a Hall of Fame basketball player, but she's also arguably the best college basketball coach in the country, men's or women's basketball. She led South Carolina to a national championship a few years ago. They probably would have won it in 2020 had, the NCAA not been forced to cancel the tournaments. But she led her team to the #1 ranking. And I was able to get an interview with her, talk to her. Look, anybody that would be interested in Dawn Staley, they would know, she's a Hall of Famer, she's the coach of South Carolina, she was the Naismith Coach of the Year. They know all that stuff. What they didn't know about, that I wanted to ask her about, that's what I look to do. Find the angle that people don't know. Find the angle that people might want to know but aren't in position to ask.
Right.
Find the angle that also will make your interview subject, in this case Dawn Staley, find a way to make her go, I didn't expect this. This is really fun. So, in other words, she's used to people asking her the same questions over and over about what's going on in the court at the time, what's going on with the pandemic. All these questions she gets 1,000 times a day. So what I asked her about were two things. One, during our days, girls used to rock the hairstyles, I don't know what they did with them, the hair. She was like the queen of tight hairstyles back in the day.
Sure.
Wow. So I asked her about that. And I asked her about an episode of Martin that she was on, when she was on the Olympic team. They were all, I think Banging at the Schoolyard or something like that was the name of the episode. So she pulls out like this book, this like beaten up book. And she's like, actually, I have this right here. It was like the original script that she used for Martin. And we start talking about it, and I asked her about her favorite parts in it. And we start going into like the names of how she referred to the characters of the show, and how she called them their character names when off the set, because she's like, well, that's how I knew them, as Martin, Pam, Tommy, Cole, and Gina. She's like, I didn't talk about their real names. But the point is, you can't just get that on the phone. Like, that's something that you have to want to dig deep for. That's the difference between sportscasting now and sportscasting back then. I remember as an intern when our sportscast, the guys that did sportscasting, they would run scoreboards. And they did that because back then, most of the people in our area did not have cable. Most of them just went over the air with the regular network. So you didn't have phones where you could check on scores anytime you wanted to. Most TVs didn't have, the programs you watch, they didn't have the tickers at the bottoms where you could see the scores all throughout whatever game you were watching or event you were watching that night. So they actually gave scoreboards and showed scoreboards, gave scores in a sportscast. Now, because of the phones and devices and people can get access to whatever they want like that, you have to figure out a creative way to draw people in to make them want to come back to you and watch more, to make them go, oh, I didn't think of that. Or to make them go, I actually learned something. I'm coming back to that person because I know if and when I watch him or her, they're going to teach me something I didn't know. So that becomes the game, basically. That becomes the challenge right now. How do you figure a way to get people information that they can't get anywhere else but to tune into you? So to me, that's what sportscasting has become. It's that and also storytelling as well. How do you tell a story? How best do you get people to give you information that your viewers cannot get anywhere else? So tomorrow, I apologize for just dating this, but tomorrow I'm scheduled to have the head coach of the Atlanta Hawks, the NBA's Atlanta Hawks, Lloyd Pierce, scheduled to interview him tomorrow. And what I want to talk to him about are a couple of things. One, how they will navigate the pandemic. Two, march on Atlanta. We had a march on Atlanta shortly after the Rayshard Brooks killing this summer. And this was in June. And he had some really poignant words at that march where he opened himself up. And I want to ask him about that. I also want to ask him about the fact that he's going to be coaching against his college teammate at some point this season. His college teammate is actually Steve Nash, the Hall of Famer. So they were together out in California at Santa Clara University. Little things like that, but there are also a couple other things. The arena that the Hawks used was their home arena, State Farm Arena, was, to my knowledge, the first sports venue to open its doors to citizens as a polling place. And so I want to get his take on that. How did that idea come about? How much was he a part of it? So little things like that, you're not going to be able to get that on these. You can't just click on, tap an app and get that information, readily available. So that's the type of thinking that I have when I do my job now. That's what's so different again from what it used to be. So for anybody that is really interested in what it's like now, if you really want to be good at it, find those holes that need to be filled and fill them. Find a way to seek topics and information that aren't readily available to everybody at the click of a button or the tap of a finger. So that's the challenge right now. It's one that you look forward to every day, but there are times when, as I tell people that want to get into the business all the time, there are going to be moments when you question why you got into it. It's not easy by any stretch. For the first 21 years I was in the business, I worked weekends. Worked a lot of holidays. I worked this past Thanksgiving, I was working. So you want to give up your holidays, your July 4th celebrations and all that, in a normal year, of course. You want to give up all those? You want to work while all your buddies are hanging out at the clubs and going out on the weekends? Sportscasting's for you. If you don't want to do that, then you have to rethink it, because it requires a certain amount of dedication that is not normal for most people.
Interesting. And you know what? It's funny that you say that, because that's actually something that I kind of wanted to gloss around. With specificity to the thing that nobody talks about, as far as the dedication to the craft juxtaposed against what is actually given to the craft. and how that plays, because a lot of times, even with the entertainment overall, there's a whole big thing, a big fraction of people that they have negative connotation when it comes to the entertainment industry anyway. And then there's you're never around because I didn't expect this, because you're an entertainer, I can't, like there's a lot of insecurity. There was a lot of things that work to the detriment of building relationships and so forth and so on in the entertainment business. Tell me, does that extend to sportscasting business too? Because I assume that those kind of things do extend, like with regards to personal relationships and so forth and so on. That if you're a singer or a rapper or something like that, then it's like, oh, you have this image, and it comes with the things that come with that become your reality. But then there's like stuff like weather, people who do the weather, or people, there's news anchors or news correspondents, and then there's sportscasters. Do you experience the same level of issue? And it seems like you do. So we don't have to go into it fully if not necessary. But it seems like you do. That everybody else does, whereas it's just so much time away creates risk and creates issues and so forth and so on. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you what. Probably similar to the entertainment industry, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Since that is your field of expertise. When you're watching TV, even the news, 15% of what you see is real. It's about it.
Yeah.
So the example you gave of weather, I'll stick with that for a second. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what they do all day. and I'm friendly with all the weather people I work with. I love them. They're for the most part very kind people. Look, so if I can get my weather on this at the snap of a finger, what do I need to sit through a bunch of weather forecasts for? But that's a whole other story. Back to the point, most of what you see is not real. The egos in broadcasting are through the roof. So whenever you see some of these athletes that are all about themselves and spotlights on them, and it's all about me, news business is the same way. I promise you. In the news business, you make a lot less money than those guys that act as they do at times in sports. They have enough leverage and enough money in their accounts where they can act that way. In the news business, often you don't. But that doesn't stop people from acting that way. Egos are a trip, man. But the egos that are in the news business are and the way people view the industry is really through rose-colored lenses. And I would imagine very much like the entertainment industry, they see what they see and they think that that's all there is. They don't understand the amount of dedication that goes into it. So I said what I said about the weather people because, frankly, I have no idea. Maybe they do a bunch. I don't know. But in other forms of it, if you want to be good at your job, much like I would imagine any job, if you want to be good at your job, you have to put in time. You have to put in effort. You have to go beyond the surface, or else, frankly, you're going to suck. And most people don't understand that. Most people turn it on and they see you and they think, oh, this is great. I want to do that. And then they get in the door and they realize what it takes to be good. and most do not want to put in the time or the effort to be good. They ultimately learn that. Now, there are some people, I mentioned the egos, there are some people who get to a point where they are very good, and that's when egos take over, and we have to have a separate conversation one day about just the egos in our industries, because I'd probably bet you good money that my industry is right there with yours. It's right on the entertainment industry's heels in terms of ego. Believe me, you'd be surprised. The same people that you turn on, and you're like, wow, this person's really measured and cool customer, and I really like this person. Probably 6 times out of 10, that person's ego is through the roof. It would surprise people. It would shock people. It really would.
Okay. Well, listen, this is the type of stuff that people need to know and have an understanding about. When you're trying to track down certain levels of celebrity, regardless of the industry, egos is definitely at the front and center of all of it. So I totally understand where you come from with that. But it's both a gift and a curse to be able to hear you say that, because it's like I hear you.
Well, yeah, but see, so the other thing is, and it's actually true, the ego that some people display, in many instances, that level of confidence is what helps people ascend to where they are as well. So when you say it's a gift and a curse, like it really is. It really is. So if you take away a person's confidence, or you want them to be less confident than what they've shown, then who knows what they become. So it really is kind of a balancing act. But it's a balancing act I think many people fail. They always end up on that side of the line where, again, just ego is out of control. It's difficult. Look, in terms of the entertainment industry, for people who, if somebody hands you power, money, ability to do whatever you want to do with whom you wish to do it, it's hard to be focused 100% of the time. It's hard not to think I have the world at my feet. So I get it. I mean, we're all human. To err is human, but it's still something that you have to grab by the horns, or else you can find yourself on a wild ride, for sure. But ego's a mother, man. It's an ever-present mystery in terms of how to balance it, how to stay disciplined, how to get disciplined, and then how to stay disciplined. It's an interesting world, and again, social media has just changed the game in every industry. Because now, remember, we were growing up, you go get a magazine and you find out, how people are living. You might watch TV cribs or something of that, for certain people at a certain level. The Lifestyles, the Rich and Famous, I guess, was their show. But that was how you saw how people lived, the perception anyway. But now, social media, everybody's a star. Everybody thinks they're a star. People only post what they want you to see. And now the balancing act for all of us is, what do I believe and what do I cast aside? Because you have to remind yourself, okay, not everything you see is real. So now it's become a game, man. Like, I can't imagine being in school right now, where we were, with the world being what it is right now. I can't. It'd be totally different.
That is, I feel like you put me on an interview. I feel you. I don't think that the people will do so well. Like, I mean, just thinking about being in like James Hall and being like, oh, like the back and forth, or being in like, oh, I'm in Wilder Hall, and oh, did you hear about such and such? And we didn't have social media back then. Can you imagine how much nonsense would have went on? Would have just, oh man.
Yeah. Cell phones, cameras. Hey, you imagine how many people would have gotten caught doing stuff?
Man, that part.
Hey man, I try not to think about all of that as much as possible because it's been a whole lot different for a whole lot of people.
Man, you ain't said that slip to a can of oil. Good grief. Yeah, I mean, I can think about good five to 10 scenarios as if it made it to the prime time on somebody's phone.
Oh
Yeah, the outcome would have been markedly different. Wow. Well, interesting points. And I'm glad that you brought those things up. And I'm glad that you brought a sense of understanding to the parallels within the industry. That means a lot. To lighten it up, though, let me ask you, since you've primarily been around the sportscasting business, and people, you have become to be a trusted leader when it comes to your prognostication and your understanding and your thought process about sports. Let me ask you this: COVID-19 within the state of sports, specifically NBA, NFL. I got a lot of friends right now, and moving to LA, I got a couple of them there, NFL level, NBA level. I got a couple of friends that are in the women's professional football league, all of the above. The preparedness and the readiness for each in each industry within the entertainment industry, if I will. What is your thoughts on the state of, like, how they're what their preparedness is, or how they're handling so forth and so on with COVID-19? What are your thoughts on that? And obviously, if you don't want to say anything, I respect that too.
Well, having the vaccine now authorized by the FDA and the CDC is going to be, we hope, a significant game changer to allow us to get back on the path to normalcy. Again, we hope. When all of that will come into play, I mean, we'll see. Nobody knows at this point. But it's always important to know with sports that you always follow the money. So there are things that are not going to be fair, but they'll be reality because of the money. The NBA, by and large, has done it right. The NBA has been more successful than any other sports league by far. So they had a very successful time in the bubble in Orlando, Florida, where there were 0 positive cases once that restart began in July. From July all the way through October 11th, when the Lakers won the title, 0 positive cases, which is remarkable when you think about where we were at the time. No vaccine in sight at the time. And the dedication that those players and coaches and officials, referees, and everybody involved showed, isolating from their families for 3 months, 3.5 months. It was a tremendous sacrifice, but it was also something that the league was willing to pay for in terms of daily testing, even now, the league is about to start back up. The preseason is already underway. The regular season starts on the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already come out and said that they're going to have rapid testing every day. And they're doing it right. They have. So for all the people in this country specifically who made the NBA and players out to be villains,
Okay.
It's a bad time for them, seeing how the league handled everything right. Whether that's COVID, whether that's social injustice, messaging, they did it all right. How that will proceed, we'll see. I mean, nobody knows at this point. The NFL has done a fairly decent job, I mean, all things considered, considering how many players and staff personnel they have within that league. They've done a decent job. Now, with that said, the NFL is the most lucrative sports league in North America. So they have the money to be able to put into their efforts, no matter what. So there have been some people who asked about the scheduling, and there have been a couple of outbreaks, notably the teams at Tennessee and most recently Baltimore. Yeah, and there have been a question, are they going to have to reschedule things? Are they going to push the Super Bowl back? Come hell or high water, the league's going to do what it can to make sure that everything stays on time, because it's about money. It's all about money. So think about it this way. I want to say the NFL gets something like $9 billion a year from its TV partners. CBS, Fox, ESPN, NBC. And the commissioner, Roger Goodell, a couple of years ago paid $44 million. That was his salary for 1 year, $44 million. When you have that much money put into something that generates so much money, they're going to find a way. The interesting question becomes, is it fair for those players and coaches and leagues to be able to have testing and access that you and I don't? The answer is the same: follow the money.
Right.
They have the money to be able to navigate however they wish. The rest of us don't. Now, perhaps it's a fair question to say, why doesn't the government fund enough so that all of us can be tested and treated just like these athletes are? That's probably a fair question, but that's also life. Those players are commodities. They're assets for those leagues to continue to generate money.
Right.
So it's an investment for those leagues. So again, they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that things go as smoothly as possible, come hell or high water. Now, college football and college basketball, they've been an absolute mess all season long. And unlike those professional athletes in the NBA and NFL in particular that you mentioned, it's college basketball and college football players, they're amateurs. And even though they generate a lot of money for the NCAA, they don't get any cut of it. They don't get paid. So why are they putting their lives on the line? You could ask that question. Some want to do it because they want to elevate their draft status or prospects. But by and large, most of those who are playing those sports in college will never play professionally. We still don't know the effects that COVID will have on people after they've contracted it. We have no idea. So even though a vaccine is near now, that's something that isn't discussed enough. Even though these guys are big, strong athletes, it has not prevented some of them from being hospitalized, from actually getting very ill. So whenever you think in sports and COVID, follow the money. And if the league is expensive enough, they're going to do what they can to protect their players and to keep that ball rolling every single time. Because there are billions and billions of dollars at stake. Going way back to March, the biggest indicator that COVID was real and was going to be a problem was when the NCAA canceled the tournament, basketball tournaments, men's and women's tournaments. Billions of dollars generated by that tournament every year. And when they canceled it, you better believe that was the last resort for them. But they knew they had to because they were running out of time. So that was an eye-opener for me. That was when I was like, okay, wow, this is really something. This is not good. Even now, the college tournament this year, the men's tournament, they're considering having all the games held in Indianapolis, which would have been the site of the Final Four anyway. So they're going to consider having all the teams go to Indianapolis, play in a bubble type of atmosphere. I don't know how that will go. I don't even know if they will get it accomplished. But again, billions of dollars are at stake. Follow the money, and that'll give you your answer most times when it comes to COVID in sports.
Listen, I totally understand. I mean, and I'm sorry for the communique. I mean, I'm listening to you. It's not anything else. I agree with you. Absolutely, follow the money. Follow the money in any scenario or situation where there is situations that don't get resolved. I believe money is 9 times out of 10 the root of the issue. With regard to me being, I'm a huge NFL, NBA fan. Not an NCAA fan. I never have been. But NFL and the NBA, I follow. I have been following since 1985. Interesting that you figure all of the things that you say, because I know there's a lot of love-hate relationship with Goodell, and I think Adam Silver deserves a lot more praise than he gets. But I absolutely believe that people speak more highly of Adam Silver than they do Goodell anyway, regardless. But with regard to COVID-19 and how things are happening with both of them, I think it exposes a lot. So I definitely appreciate your thoughts and statements on the matter. Let me transition really quick. With regard to teams, because again, your experience with sports and your affiliation with sports and how long you've been doing it, I want to know what your prognostication is. What teams that are that's out there right now? So I created this hashtag. My teams are better than yours. I should have put like a little face on there, but my teams are better than yours. What's your thoughts with regards to NFL and NBA in the current era of COVID? But what's your thoughts? Like, who do you think are going to be upsets? Who do you think are going to be definite locks? Like from the Washington football team being, finally equipped the number one in the deficit of the NFC East, or even the Lakers being the world champions right now. Do you believe that they deserve an asterisk, or do you believe that they're true on champion? What's your thoughts?
So I'll start with the Lakers. The asterisk thing is, if anything, if people want to put an asterisk by what they accomplished in the bubble, it will be an asterisk indicating an incredible accomplishment. Because of just how abnormal it all was, I mean, they're to be applauded. Again, being away, again, everything was so abnormal. Most times for playoffs, even when these players shut out the noise, shut out social media, shut out their families, they're still able to go around everything, including their families. In this instance, they really weren't for such a long time. Now it was different too, so they didn't have to feel the wrath of the road crowds when they were in the playoffs, which, as you know, is different. In the playoffs, crowds are different. So who knows how that would have affected, the fifth, sixth player on the team.
Right.
The second, third reserve might not have been able to shoot the ball as well in a game 6 on the road as he would in game 6 in the bubble, where there are no fans and very little family that came on later. So that's my thought on 2020 and just the accomplishment. I do think it's interesting, though, that the Lakers, credit to them, it's not their fault, but all the teams that most felt like they would have their most trouble against, Bucks, Celtics, Clippers, they didn't have to play any of them. But that's not their fault. One, that's not their fault. And two, they locked down the number 1 seed. They did what they had to do all season long, pre and post hiatus. And locking down the number 1 seed meant they didn't have to play the Clippers in the second round. So not their fault. But still, it was interesting that they didn't have to play the 3 teams that most people felt would have given them trouble: Celtics, Bucks, and Clippers. So this season will be interesting to see how it goes. Anytime you have 2 of the top 5 players, like they had with Kobe and Shaq, and now with LeBron and Anthony Davis, it's going to be tough to beat them, especially now that Davis has an understanding of what it takes to get to the finals and to win it. With that said, I'm bad at predictions. I really am. So I'm not going to predict anything. But I will say it'll be interesting to see who handles what the best. And by that, I mean, we mentioned COVID and sports a moment ago. This thing isn't over. And the vaccine will be distributed to certain people in a certain order. When players are able to receive them and their families, I don't know yet. But it's still out there. So is there going to be some knucklehead on a contender that gets vaccinated and then decides, hey, everything's cool, I'm going to go out to the club, and then, track something, or somebody he's with contracts it? There's so many variables right now because of COVID still. So the Lakers were the team that handled everything the best, all things considered, in the bubble, when there were no positive tests because everybody was in the bubble. But now you're going to have teams in their home markets, traveling, home and away games, even though there will be no fans in most arenas for the foreseeable future. You tell me players are not going to go out on those road trips to Miami and LA? They're going out.
Definitely get that chicken.
They're going to do it. So, in Atlanta, we saw what happened with Lou Williams.
That's the thing. They're going to get that chicken.
Yeah. So, which teams are going to handle it the best? I think that's going to say a lot. Health is always a factor, so we never know which teams are going to come up, end up with injuries. It'll be an interesting mix, but it'll be hard to turn away from. For me, I think the Bucks will be right back there again, with Giannis coming back hungrier than ever. The trade for Drew Holiday from New Orleans. Drew Holiday is one of the most
underheralded.
No question. Doesn't seek the spotlight or acclaim, just wants to go out there and do his job. Which, I mean, you know me, I love that because I try to be that and do that myself. So anybody that exhibits some of those same attributes, I'm a fan. So, but he's just a hell of a player. So to have him to pair up with Giannis and all those shooters, and the coach in Milwaukee is Mike Budenholzer, who used to coach in Atlanta, and he's a great offensive coach. They're going to be right there again. The Bucks will. The Heat, again, it's going to be hard to beat them, but I also think they can be had too. How much will Doc Rivers help in Philadelphia? He's going to help. How much? I don't know. Boston's going to be right there. It's going to be interesting. So in the East, as far as the West, Tyler was able to do it with LeBron in Cleveland in 2016. There's something to that. So how much will he help Paul George and Kawhi? Paul George had his issues in the bubble as far as just mental health and being where he needed to be on that certain plane mentally. He's back home now. So we expect him to be who he is. They should be better, but Denver's not going away. Utah was actually my dark horse pick last year before Bogdanovich got hurt. Because Bogdanovich is, he just gives him a different element. Another shooter, big guy. We saw what Donovan Mitchell could do in the bubble. I love Utah in terms of their roster, how deep they are. I love the way they're coached. It's not a popular pick, but I love Utah. Portland's there. So prediction business, I can't do it. There's so many different good teams and different variables that teams will have to find a way to navigate around. As far as NFL, I just don't know who can beat the Chiefs, man. When you have that much speed and going in that you're going to have to score at least 28, 30 points to beat them. At least. Wow. So I just don't know how you're going to do that. And then if you do get to 28, 30, then you got to hope that your defense is on and can keep them from scoring. So the only team I think that has a chance is, I'll take it back. I think there are two teams that have a chance. Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Tennessee because they can run the ball, even though it didn't work last year in the championship game, the AFC championship game. But they can run the ball and they can keep the ball for enough time, I think, to keep Mahomes on the sideline. And they have the experience from losing in the title game last year to possibly help put them over the top. Pittsburgh, because they're the best defense in the league. Whether it's good enough to stop Kansas City, I don't know. But they have the best defense in the league. Problem with the Steelers is they can't run the ball. So with that, I'm just not sure. The NFC, I think whoever comes out in the NFC is going to lose. I'm just not high on the NFC this year. Whether it's the Saints, Packers, I'm not a big fan of either team against whoever comes out of the AFC. So our beloved Washington football team, much better than what we've seen. The future seems to be bright. Maybe they can hang on to first place here to end this year and get to the playoffs. We'll see. But I'm excited about 2021 for the Washington football team. This year they don't have enough offense to do it. But it's good to see the resumption of real football and accountability there with the burgundy and gold. So hopefully they're back to being a real true contender year in and year out starting this year.
It's interesting. I'm glad that you said that because we actually had a segment for that. I think you already touched on it, so we don't even really need to touch it. But I want to throw out there that with the defense that they're presenting right now, it seems to be very. Let me take back very highly formidable. Jack Del Rio was he didn't even put together the group, but he made it so that the group knows how to play. I think that with that, I think if they keep that up, they have a shot. Whereas in years past, I didn't believe it. Offensively, there's still a ton for them to do, especially if they have anybody other than Alex Smith up there. So I think Alex Smith is the key to what they have right now. With that being said, you still do not believe the Washington football team will turn the corner this year, but you believe 2021 will be back. I want to ask that question to be clear.
Yeah. I just don't think they have enough offense this year. Like I said, the defense is filthy, especially because of that front four. That front four is just ferocious.
Agreed.
And it's so funny because last December, about a year ago now, they played the Giants at FedEx Field, and if they had won that game, the Giants would have had the second pick in the draft, and they would have gotten Chase Young. And fortunately, they lost that game, and Washington football team was able to get Chase Young. But there were fans that were actually like, "No, we got to beat the Giants." No, the hell you don't. Those two boys and go out there and get this ferocious monster to chase them around for the next 10 years.
Right.
He's been as advertised. Like it's just good to know. And we share the same sentiment. It's just good to know, and there's a certain amount of pride that you feel when you know that the team that you like, finally every week you're not gonna get your ass whipped. Like you might get beat, but at least you're not gonna have to hang your head in shame because you got your ass whipped in the most embarrassing fashion.
And then have people talking.
Yeah, I mean, look, and it's all because of the defense. Like that the defense is at least gonna, I won't necessarily say keep you close, but at least you won't get embarrassed because guys like Chase Young, they're not gonna allow that. So it's a new day. I mean, and that's exciting.
Yeah, I still am a very firm believer in old school ball, like the years of Buddy Ryan and the Giants have passed, but defense wins ball games. Offense sells tickets or sells seats. I've always believed in that from way back then, and I still believe it to this today. To this day. So
two exceptions though. Two exceptions. The Rams in '99. I mean, the greatest show on turf Rams. They just it was the same thing as what we're seeing now with the Chiefs.
I agree.
They're going to put up 30, and now the difference is the year that the Rams won it, '99. Tampa Bay held them to like 11 points in the championship game, I think. And so there's that, that possibility. So to your point, defense can do it, but the odds are they won't. So just like with them, the Chiefs last year, 20 years later, the Chiefs did the same. They're winning with offense. Like their defenses are mediocre, man. I mean, I shouldn't say mediocre, but they're not. Their defenses, they're not winning because of their defenses. Put it that way.
Fair.
But your point is still valid. Like the Rams won in '99. 2 years later, they should have won it again, but the Patriots won it because of defense. So your point's still valid. But those two teams, the '99 Rams, the 2019 Chiefs, I think are exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I do not disagree with you whatsoever. The one thing I will say is being a diehard NFLer, I look at teams like '85 Bears. I can tell you everybody that was on that defense. Offense outside of Jim McMahon, not so much. The defense where the Ray Lewis defense where they went to the Super Bowl and I believe they played the Giants. I believe they had Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and so forth and so on. I can tell you that defense. That offense, not so much. Again, I totally agree with you because the Mike Martz offense that came through, the greatest show on turf. I definitely remember them. That's the Torrey Holt led and Marshall Faulk led and Kurt Warner led Rams. Totally understand. Isaac here, Hakeem. I remember that team. but it's that defense. And like even now with the Rams with the defense, it's like Aaron Donald is like the Rams. No disrespect to Jalen Ramsey, because I don't think he's a slouch either. I think he's the next big deal. I just don't think he has enough opportunity to show it because nobody throws in his way because he's Jalen Ramsey. You know, but I think Aaron Donald, he makes it his business to be in the conversation because he's always back there. If you know what I'm saying. But again, who am I to say? I'm just saying that's my belief and that's my thought process. So I hear you. I agree. I just I hear you.
I got you. As a matter of fact, I think the Rams have a real shot because of their defense. I do. The problem is, again, once they get to, if they get out of the NFC and they're playing the Chiefs, they're gonna have to score 30, man. I mean, and I don't see Jared Goff doing that
By himself.
Hmm?
I said by himself. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's because when you take Todd Gurley out and give him to Atlanta, I like Cam Akers. I like the running back by committee that they have, but I'm gonna still stack the box anyway because they're not Todd Gurley.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, but no. With that said, like Todd Gurley isn't Todd Gurley anymore either. I mean, like,
that's fair.
Yeah, he's just it's not his fault. He's just not himself. He had a bad knee. Really, when he came out of college, and it's gotten to a point now. He just doesn't have the same burst. I mean, it happens. So I think that was the reason they decided to move on from him. He just wasn't himself. So it's unfortunate, but yeah. I mean, look, like I said, they're gonna have to score if they match up with the Chiefs. If they get the Steelers or another team, they have a shot. Because, like I said, that defense, guys like Aaron Donald, Chase Young, they don't grow on trees. So when you have them, they make a difference. But you have to have something on the other side too. Especially if you're facing the elite offenses in the league. And right now, like I said, with the Chiefs in particular, I just don't know how you do it. Even if you have the best game plan, they can erupt at any time. And it's because of speed and Mahomes. So I don't know. I mean, but like I said, look, again, we talked about COVID earlier. It is not out of the question that the Chiefs get to the AFC Championship game, and 2 days before the championship game, Mahomes tests positive.
Yeah.
And look, this, I'm telling you, man, this is unlike anything we've ever seen. So we just don't know. We just don't. And it's not like one of those situations where it's something happens and you can wish it away, or you can, heaven forbid, some sort of arrest, and pending the court case, he can still play. No, if you test positive, you're out for a certain distinguished period of time, unless it turns out to be a false positive, which also has happened this year. So, but yeah, anything can happen, and like I said, that's why I'm bad at predictions. That's why I'm bad at predictions anyway. But especially in this day and age with this pandemic, I wouldn't do it. I couldn't bet on anybody either. If I were a betting man, I just wouldn't do it this year. Just too much uncertainty.
Fair. And I totally understand. We have we are definitely over time. I definitely want to respect your time. I know you're a very busy person, and I definitely thank you for your time. I just want to run really quick, three things across your plate real quick. just to kind of wrap it up, but definitely want to understand where you are with him. Being that you're a DMV person, Westbrook or Wall? You knew that was coming, I'm sure. I don't even know why you didn't even know that was coming.
Let me tell you, man, when you love the area like we do, you love John Wall. That dude, he did so much good for that city off the court that we embraced him as one of ours. I don't know what happened with that video that came out. It was in New York, I guess.
Yeah.
Signs and stuff. I don't know what that was about. I will say this though. So John, he lost his mom, and I can't remember exactly when it was, but I think it was this year, this calendar year. If it wasn't, it was last year.
That was last year.
It was last year. Okay, so he lost his mom to cancer, and as someone who lost his mom to cancer, it changes you. There are certain things that you do, certain behavior, sometimes that you can't quite explain. Sometimes there are certain things that you do to not have to think about the pain of losing your mom in that way. I'm not excusing what he did. I'm just saying I don't know what that was about. And when you lose your mom to a disease such as that, and you're a young man, it can take a toll on you. So, with that said, he did a lot of good for the city and for the area. And we'll always be grateful to him for that. He was a star that the area needed, and he did a lot of good for the city. But it was time. It was time. I don't know that the team would have improved with him there. Whether, not saying it was his fault, but sometimes it's just time. For Westbrook, last year, it was his time to move on from OKC to Houston. And so I think that team in DC has been so cool for so long, like too cool for school type cool for a long time. Those days are over because we know what kind of fire that dude brings.
Right.
I mean, this is now, he was 08 draft, so this is going to be his 13th season.
Yeah.
That dude is still the most competitive SOB in the game. Goes hard every second he's on the floor. And that team needs that. So for right now, Westbrook is what they need. But I'll always be thankful for John Wall, what he did and what he means and what he meant to that city and that area. So I'm kind of fudging a little bit, I'm kind of, towing the line a little bit. I don't know if that's really a sufficient answer, but that's the best one that I can give. Wall for what he's done, Westbrook for what he will do right now.
No, I think this is the thing. I think that you put it the best way that any person from the area could have put it. And it's so politically correct the way you put it. I can't think no other way to say it. Like I agree. Like initially, my response was, I can't even say what my response was without throwing a bunch of expletives to it. I had to delete posts over it because I was immediately like, but then really thinking about it, I was like, yeah, you know what? It's necessary.
Yeah.
It's very necessary. And there's no love lost to John. There's no disrespect to Westbrook because he isn't, he's achieved the level of respect he has. This is needed. It's what the team needs, and I can see it. And I think the thing that I had the most to deal with or issue with it was I've had a love hate thing for Bradley Beal. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying that he does not deserve what he gets or the respect he gets. He is definitely somebody that has come in and has worked every single year since he's been there. He's definitely grown every year. He's definitely a consummate team and player and professional. But I just physically, it's like this is John's team, though. Like you are overstepping your boundaries quite a bit. And I hear people talk around John like John didn't exist because John was injury, not injury prone, but he was injured. It bothered me. However, like you said, thinking about it made me think about it, and it's like this is what the team is. We've had it long enough, and now it's time to make the decision that's best for the franchise going forward. So, thank you. That's all I got to say about that.
Look, I mean, think about it like this too. I'll tell you a short story. This was 2000. I think it was 2005. Was the year that Gilbert, way back when Gilbert was still there, Gilbert Arenas, and
Still the greatest.
Greatest what?
I'm sorry. Greatest point guard that the Wizards ever had. I'm sorry, as far as I'm concerned.
Greatest point guard? I'll give you that. Greatest bullet wizard. Yeah, I mean that wouldn't fly. I mean,
fair.
Yeah. It couldn't put him out. Look, even though I don't remember, Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes, but those dudes, they hung a banner up in there. So I don't think anybody can be put above them. But in terms of point guards, yeah, I mean, I think Gilbert has that. But so 05, I think it was the year that they beat Chicago. And they got to the second round of the playoffs. And I'll never forget, they were giving out T-shirts at the end of the game, like when they clinched the series. And I was at ESPN at the time, and people were coming up to me there asking, like, dude, what's the deal with they're giving out T-shirts? Like, they just made the second round. And I looked at them and I said, you don't understand. Like, that's like winning the championship there. Like, at the time, we hadn't been to the second round. I say we because, that's our team. We haven't been to the second round since, I think, 82. So more than 2 decades, and you haven't been out of the first round of the playoffs, that's cause for celebration. Now, that was cause for celebration after more than 2 decades. But unfortunately, with Wall and with Beal together, they couldn't get past the second round, even in a weak Eastern Conference. And so, again, when you have that roadblock there and you can't seem to get past it, and both of those guys are making 9 figures, like you have to rethink, because clearly something wasn't working well enough. Is it John's fault that he got injured? No, but you still have to choose at some point. You can't keep paying $100 million to 2 guys, and then foolishly they gave out a Porter a $100 million contract too. But you can't keep paying that much money to people, and you're not at least getting to a conference finals. Again, especially when you were in a weak Eastern Conference, it just doesn't equate.
Right.
So they tried something, and even though Westbrook's making the same amount of money as Wall, you had to try something different. And again, Westbrook will bring an intensity there that's been missing, frankly. And hopefully, how far that will get them, who knows? But they had to do something. They couldn't have continued status quo. It just wasn't working.
And I don't disagree with you. I think you're right. And I applaud you for your stance on it, as well as your eloquent way to be able to put it for people that may not have looked at it from that perspective. Um, and so we're clear too. I was one of those people that rooted for Otto Porter to get paid, but then immediately was like, no,
Yep.
because whatever. The thing that I had an issue with though is that so first of all, this narrative would be different if they didn't rob Paul Pierce. Because Paul Pierce got robbed of that last shot of the buzzer, and they said that, it was waved off because he didn't. No, he got it up in time. But there goes the tape. At least that's just how I feel about it. But I feel where you're coming from, and I understand where your perspective on it. So I mean, thank you for sharing.
That was the year Wall got hurt too, right? In the playoffs.
You said who?
That was the year Wall got hurt in the playoffs. That was the year where he hurt his wrist.
I don't. Yeah, he hurt his wrist, but I think he played through it though, didn't he? Because
because one of those series, yeah, he if he played through it, he wasn't himself. Something was off that year. But had he been healthy, they would have gotten to the conference finals.
Yeah.
So, but look, that's part of it though. Again, not his fault, but there was always something coming up injury wise. So they made the choice they had to make, which was picking Beal. They had to pick the guy with the
least amount of injury.
Yeah, with a lesser injury history, who was younger, and frankly, I mean, Beal's gonna be able to shoot forever. Wall's been there 10 years and still hasn't developed a consistent jump shot. And with constant lower leg surgeries, he's not going to be the same guy. So they made the right choice. It's just, I don't want to compare him to Kobe and Shaq, but
of course,
when they had to move on from Shaq because Kobe was younger and he was the box office guy. Sometimes you have to make choices, and they do what they had to do. Like I said, it was time. It was time.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't feel any kind of funny way about it.
Yeah.
All right, so again, to further make sure that we wrap this up in a bow and respect the time and get you out of here. You got any advice for aspiring talent, people that are looking to make they come up in the sportscasting business or any kind of news casting type of position? What's your advice?
So a couple of things. One, go to school with it in mind, if that's your goal, but major in something else. You want to give yourself as many options as possible. And options equal leverage. And leverage is more important than money. If a place, and this is in any industry, if a place knows that you don't need it and you have options, then you have leverage. And that place will treat you differently. If a place has a firm understanding that you need it more than it needs you, that place has you by the you-know-whats and will treat you accordingly. Give yourself options, because I've worked with a number of people who majored in something totally different and still wound up in the industry. But they also have a fallback option if they decide, you know what, I'm just not feeling this, I'm ready to move on. They have an option to go do whatever it is they majored in. For those who major in media, you have to start over almost. No, you can always major in one thing and then minor in media, journalism, or you can major in one thing and then get your master's in journalism or media. There are a number of different avenues you can go, but I would recommend people who are interested major in something else. The second thing is be prepared to sacrifice. So I mentioned earlier that for more than 2 decades, I worked on weekends and many holidays. And the job I have now is the first job I've ever had where I'm actually off on the weekend. So it took me 2 decades to get to that point. Wasn't necessarily a goal, but it just kind of worked out that way. But who out there is willing to sacrifice? If you want to be in it, be prepared to give up those weekends, be prepared to give up those holidays, sacrifice for a little bit to be able to enjoy what you say you want. And I say it that way because most people say they want something, but they aren't willing to go about the actions that require it. So if you're willing to sacrifice, then it won't be a thing to you. Third, be willing to do whatever and go wherever. So for me, we've spoken about where we're from, and I started out in Mississippi. That was where I first started my career. Mississippi, a lot different from home, obviously. And many people, from my understanding, I never knew it. My father told me that many people came to him and asked him, just how could I do that? And wasn't it a culture shock for me, and so forth and so on. And I remember he told me about it, and I never thought twice about it. I just knew that was something I had to do to get where I wanted to go. Other people don't necessarily always understand your path. It's not for them to understand all the time. It's your path. So you determine what's best for you, and then you go about getting and claiming what you feel is yours. Other people have their path, they have their goals, you have yours. So as long as you remain fixated on yours, focused on what it is, again, that you say you want, then there should be nothing that holds you back from it.
Right.
If there is, then you have to question how bad you truly wanted it. So, I mean, those would be the main things. Again, sacrifice is just a major component. How much are you willing to sacrifice? Because most people, from using like the Kobe example, I mentioned Kobe a second ago. Kobe would be in the gym insane hours of the night. Just had to be there. And I listened to a podcast last week, as a matter of fact, and it was an older podcast. It was from February. It was Kevin Garnett talking about how when he was already in the league and he was living out in Malibu in the offseason, and he would hit the beach, and he would hit the beach at like 4:30 in the morning. And like, well, why 4:30 in the morning? Because I knew, in his words, I knew that there was somebody, colorful language. I knew there was somebody on the East Coast that was up at 7:30 getting shots in. And I was like, they're already up. I'm losing. I can't be losing to them. I got a game on them. So then he said, well, then I thought about it and I said, well, somebody's up at 7 a.m. on the East Coast getting shots up. So I started getting up at 4 a.m. But although that doesn't necessarily have to be everybody's path or everybody's way of thinking, it's that type of dedication
Right.
that it takes, no matter what you're doing. It's that type of dedication to getting to where you say you want to be. I'm not saying people have to go get up at 4 a.m. or 4:30, to go and be in, broadcasting or anything. But again, that is the type of mindset you have to have. As I mentioned earlier, seek what most people cannot find. Seek those questions, those topics that most people aren't thinking of, and draw from that. Like I can get the score of games. I can get the numbers and the stats from games just by looking at my phone. I can tell who played well, who didn't, just from looking at my phone, for the most part. But for every person that is scoring a touchdown, scoring a basket. They have a story. And it's up to us to try to dig deeper and find out more about what makes that person tick, why they've become the best in the game. I mentioned Kobe a second ago. I remember there was one point where he apologized to like his wife and his daughters. And it's like, they sacrificed so much. There was so much time where I wasn't there because he was always in the gym. That was the price he had to pay to be as great as he was. So those who love you, care about you, will understand that it's your path. And if you feel like that's the path you have to take, and those are the things that you have to do to get to the end of that path, then they'll be understanding. But you have to make sure that your path is one that you're willing to take from beginning to end. Hurdles, obstacles, like we mentioned earlier, they're there for everybody. You can either stop and get off the road, or you can find a way to go around it and keep going. That's what's going to separate who succeeds and who doesn't.
Yeah, that's deep, and I definitely applaud you, and I appreciate that. For if not nothing else, I feel that more people need to hear these types of things. Maybe they know it. Maybe they have an understanding of it. Maybe they have family members that said it in the past and previously, so forth and so on. But the fact that you're saying it, we all need to be reminded. And I agree with you. And I can't say anything to the contrary of that. So, with that being said, like I said, I appreciate it. Last words. I want to ask you, how can people learn more about you? What about follow you, be supportive of you? Just if they're interested and want to learn more, how can they reach out to you?
Sheesh. I mean, the best way to just kind of follow what I'm doing, I probably tweet more than anything else. So Twitter at Anthony Amey. As far as information, I'm not out there as much as most on social media. I actually enjoy relative anonymity as much as one can have, being in the profession I'm in. I mean, you know me. It's just my personality. I'm not one of those that goes out and seeks the spotlight. I don't post a bunch of stuff. It's just not who I am. I mean, it's that. In fact, that's probably the best way to gather more information about me, is to know that you're not going to find much information about me. The best way to support me though is really just as simple as it sounds. For everybody to just strive to do their best. I mean, everybody does their best. You're helping the world be a better place. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to people who love and support you to go out there and be your best every single moment you have on the earth. You can't take anything for granted. I think this 2020 calendar year has shown all of us that. I hope so. That you can't take a single day for granted, and hopefully don't take those who you love and support, and those who care about you for granted either. In terms of what I'm doing now, Black News Channel, BNC, is again in 42 million homes across the country. We're on Charter, we're on Spectrum, we're on Xfinity, we're on DirecTV, soon to be on Dish TV. So Zumo, Roku, we're all over the place. So find us, watch us. We're actually going to celebrate a year on the air with a little bit of a relaunch in February. And so look forward to that under new leadership and management. And it's one that's full of experience. And we're growing and we're getting better, and we look forward to continuing to grow. So it's been an interesting ride, but hopefully in it for a little bit longer, and look forward to it. Just looking forward. Hey, look, man, we got another couple of weeks here of 2020. Lord knows, man, we can just get to January 1st. And then January 20th, people can, you can take that for what they will, but just getting to January 1st and then January 20th, 2021, everything on the opposite side of that hopefully will turn out to be much better than what we've experienced, certainly in this year.
For lack of a better word, yes, that part. 2020 is about as undefeated as Floyd Mayweather is. That's all I have to say about it. I appreciate you for your time, Anthony. Or Ant, I gotta call you Ant because a whole different level there. I hope to have you back. And even more so on the joint with on the Two Flu West podcast. That's more of a political based joint, but I would love to have you back with our mutual friend Baker, aka Devin, and so we can sit back and really chat it out. With regard to everything you said, I definitely appreciate it. Your work has not gone unnoticed. Definitely am thankful to have you as a friend, have you as a brother, and been someone that I can look up to and aspire to help me in my journey. I don't know anything else to say other than to be safe. I wish you the warmest of holidays, and I wish you and your family, and I know your family, at least the heads of the family, very well, and wish you nothing but the best from beyond that. Let me throw this out. If you didn't know already, I'm on the Wheel of Fortune, and my episode airs on New Year's Eve. Christmas Eve. So if you and your warm and fuzzies with your family, and you're looking for something to do that day, I would hope that you turn it on, and cheer your little bro on, man, and that would mean everything to him.
Give me the date again.
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll tune in. We'll tune in, brother. Hey, look, man. Appreciate it. I'm proud of you, man. And like I said, anything for you guys, you know that. So it was a pleasure. Appreciate you having me on and allowing me to kind of get my bit a little bit. Like I said, this is about as much as I'll do to put myself out there. But as I said, anything for you guys. So always happy to be a part.
And I appreciate you for it. And again, no, it's nothing but love and respect for you, brother. I got so much admiration for you. And like I said, man, just stay blessed, stay masked up, be safe, and I wish you nothing but continued success in everything that you're doing. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Appreciate you, brother. Likewise, man. Happy holidays.
All right, man. At the end of the day, this is Donnie B. GotDaBeats. We on the beat, and stay tuned for the next guest we have on. I hope to not disappoint. Stay safe, stay masked up, and we out.
Donnie B.